So one of the things that we focus on, right, is communicating with people. And there's no better way to communicate with people than through open houses, right? It's a wonderful resource for business. It's a great way to pick up clients. And what I find is that when I teach realtors how to focus on doing it the right way, they end up getting a lot of results from it. And what I see most realtors do, let me get started. I'm going to bring the training up. Okay, we are doing open houses today, June 26th, 11 a.m. And let me just view the slideshow. Here we go. Okay, so one of the things that I see realtors, one of the biggest mistakes I see realtors make in open houses is trying to capture everybody that's coming through the open house and ending up communicating inefficiently with a lot of different people and spending a lot of time, energy, and effort and not having a lot to show for it. Yes, we will send you the slideshow after the Zoom. Manuel, can you please monitor the chat? Thank you. Okay, perfect. So let's get started. The agenda for today. So the agenda for today is why use open houses for lead generation, how to hold an open house, pre-qualify buyers and setting expectations up front with people, and then the action steps that you can take in order to be successful in real estate. So these are the ground rules for our training. This is for my agents. You guys don't have to be on screen, but this is how we do the trainings. But one of the things I want to share with people is there is no right or wrong in coaching. There's only feedback, right? So coaching is never about making you guys wrong. It's never about making anybody wrong. It's about giving people feedback on how to improve and always continue to get better. Be here with the intention to learn something new. And then there is no failure, only feedback in coaching, right? It's a very important thing for you guys to know. So why open houses, right? So open houses are powerful because you can make both buyer and listing connections from one form of lead generation, right? It's a wonderful form of lead generation that allows you to connect with sellers and buyers simultaneously. So as an agent myself, you know, what I learned was, and as a listing agent, I became a listing agent very quickly and early on in my career, just by simply focusing on talking to sellers, right? And so what I learned from that is every time I got an open house, I could literally get one or two other listings from it by simply talking to the neighbors, right? And it's very, very powerful if it's your own listing, but I want you guys to hear this too. You can absolutely door knock neighbors without the property being your listing. Because the truth of the matter is, if you say I'm holding an open house, they automatically assume that it's your listing, right? So open houses immediately engage you with active buyers, right? These are people who are raising their hand saying that they want to purchase because they're coming into an open house. But one of the things I want to share with you guys is, you know, I see a lot of agents who are expecting to find the buyer for that particular home at the open house. Now, I always look at that as gravy, right? To find the buyer that's looking for that particular home. But the goal is what? The goal is to find buyers to work with you the way you want to work as a professional, right? And one of the things we focus on at Real Momentum Coaching is when you treat yourself as a professional, then clients treat you as a professional. And I see so many realtors treating themselves as amateurs, and so their clients will treat them as amateurs, right? So some things that you can do when you're holding an open house. And then we're going to get into very specific logistics about how to hold the open house, about scripts and conversations. But I want to give you guys some ideas, right? So some of the things that you can do with open house is a special preview open house, right? I always did a special preview. Let me turn my volume down. I always did a special preview open house to invite the neighbors. Now, why did I do that, guys? Because let me share something with you. When you're holding an open house in a neighborhood, the neighbors are going to come in to secret, if they're thinking about selling, They're going to come in to secretly interview you to see if you're the right person for their property, right? But if you're holding an open house and there's 20 people coming through or 30 people coming through, you might not have the opportunity to focus on that person, which is why I like to do a special preview open house to get the sellers in. So I know this hour I'm only focusing on these sellers that are here, because the people that are coming in are coming to a special preview open house. They're the sellers, they're the neighbors. So I'm literally focusing my attention in that hour on the sellers, and then afterwards I can focus on the buyers specifically. So source of seller leads, right? Gives you an opportunity to door knock the neighbors. And it's also, one of the things I want to share with you is, a lot of times when we talk to potential sellers or we door knock, there's resistance, right? There's resistance because there's a natural resistance that everybody has to salespeople. I'll give you an example. How many of you walked into a store and a salesperson has walked up to you and said, "Can I help you?" And you said, "No, I'm just looking," right? Even though they probably could have helped you, because we have a natural resistance to salespeople. So when you're coming at it from a position of inviting them to an open house, the resistance immediately backs down, right? So they're going to open up the door, they're going to be resistant. And then as soon as you say, "Oh, I'm just here to invite you to a special open house," or even just invite them to an open house, if you're not doing a preview, then you're just inviting them to a regular open house, the resistance goes down. And we're still going to engage in the same conversation to find out if they're a seller in the marketplace, because after we do our script, right, inviting them to the open house, then we're going to move into what are their real estate needs at this time. It's a source of buyer leads, right? So everyone who lives in the area has people in their circle who want to move into the area. One of my favorite scripts to do is when I list the properties, to call the neighbors and say, "I want to give you an opportunity to pick your new neighbor," right? Here's a perfect opportunity for you to pick your new neighbor. So if you're focused on them knowing somebody who wants to purchase in the neighborhood, there's a lot less resistance there. So prior to the open house, guys, so preparation for the open house. So here's an open house supply checklist. You guys are going to get this and the scripts. You'll have access to this, the recording and the scripts. But here's a simple open house checklist that you can use. Okay. Open house hours. Now, guys, you can hold an open house anytime you want. You can hold an open house during the week, right? As long as you're able to market it and expose it, you can hold an open house anytime you want. The usual times for open house are Saturdays and Sundays, and they both can be massively effective, right? So one of the things that I encourage people to do, and I say review and practice your scripts and dialogues, that means role play, right? Role play is one of the things I see realtors do the least, which is the most important piece of real estate. Because if you're not role playing, then what are you doing? You're practicing on clients. If you're not role playing, you're practicing on clients, right? So even if you find somebody, a friend, right? Another realtor, a spouse, relationship, just to role play simple conversations, right? When you're talking to potential buyers, just to get out all of the BS and the crap that we have inside so that we can focus on being available and paying attention and being there for clients. You should be role playing before you go into those open houses. Otherwise, you're literally practicing on clients, right? Know the current inventory and comparables, right? If you're going to sit an open house, you should know the properties that are similar in the neighborhood so that you can speak about them educatedly and maybe even potentially set up a showing, set up a appointment to go show one of those properties. Door knock around the open house, 2 to 3 blocks, about 50 doors immediately adjacent to the property, announcing the listing and inviting the neighbors to attend. Day of the open house, guys. So block out the whole day for the open house. It's a full work day, right? Do your homework, prepare yourself, be present at the open house, and follow up afterwards. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't think you need to time block the whole day for an open house, But I see a lot of realtors who literally are just out doing their thing and they're showing up last minute to open houses, not prepared, with stuff haphazard. And so this is an opportunity for you to pick up clientele, right? You should be focused and showing up at 100%. Dress professionally. Remember, every open house is a job interview, right? Now, one thing I'll share with you is, different areas have different types of dress, right? The simplest way to dress is with a suit, is as professional as possible. But let me give you an example. If you're in Silver Lake, right, you might be a little bit more hip than wearing just a black suit, because there's more artistic people in Silver Lake, right? Different areas have different styles. If you were going to list property in Malibu, I would recommend that you dress up in ripped jean shorts, because that's how all the billionaires in Malibu dress, right? There's very different styles in different areas. Prepare the proper mindset for the open house, right? How you show up will determine your success of the day, right? One of the things I talk about in my training, and I really want to share this with you guys, what we look for, we see, right? So if in our mind, buyers are liars, or buyers are bad, or open houses don't work, then what you're going to find is open houses don't work. You'll be looking for that everywhere, unconsciously, not even consciously, right? So how important is it to show up with a great attitude, right? With belief in buyers are amazing and I'm here to support buyers. The way you show up is going to matter immensely. So upon arrival, arrive at least half an hour prior to setup time, right? I see too many people showing up at the last minute. 1 hour prior to setup time would be great, especially if you want to put up a lot of signs in different areas have different regulations for signs. I'll give you an example. On the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles, you can put signs everywhere. You can make it look like you have 10 listings and have all the signs drive to one place, but there's no limit on how many signs you can put in the Sunset Strip. So if you want to sit open houses regularly in the Sunset Strip and start to look like you have a lot of listings everywhere, you can choose to do so. In West Hollywood, you can only put a sign right on the property, right? So that's it. So you don't have options to do that. So you have to know the area that you're working in, and you have to know what it is that you're looking to get out of it. But one of the great things that I love to do is to put as many signs, open house signs as possible, because it drives consumers to the property, right? And it gives you exposure. Do not park in front of the property. Park 4 or more houses away. Leave available parking for guests. That's a simple tip. Place directional signs, right? Turn on all the lights throughout the house, interior and exterior. I see too many people showing up to open houses, not opening up windows or doors, shades. Some of them they'll open, some of them they'll leave closed, right? You want to stage the house so it looks as professional as possible. Open all the open all the window blinds, the curtains, assess the view from the window, and partially open or close if applicable, right? So what does that mean? If I have a window that's looking literally up against the wall, yeah, that might be a shade that I choose to keep down, right? Or put halfway down. So you guys need to be paying attention when you're sitting open houses to make it as appealing as possible to the buyer, right? Make sure all the toilet seats are closed, the folded towel is in place. Make sure all the trash cans are not visible, empty and or closed. Ensure valuables and medicine have been put away. One of the first things I do when I sit in open house is, first of all, I'll tell clients to put everything away, but I will do a precursory walk around the house. And if there's anything that somebody can take and steal easily, I will take all those things and I'll put them in a certain hidden place, and then I'll put them back after the open house. But that's part of our responsibility as a real estate agent, right? So walk through the open house, make sure there's nothing that can be taken easily. And if there is, then you want to put it in a hidden place. Tidy up as needed so the property looks as neat and presentable as possible, right? Keep the place looking beautiful. Take pride in sitting this open house. Hide all your personal belongings, including purses, cell phones, notebooks, computers, so they're not visible at any time to visitors. Or don't bring them, right? Anything you don't want stolen, don't bring. But you shouldn't have everything. I can't tell you how many open houses I've walked into where realtors have stuff spread all over the place. They're not even looking at me or acknowledging when I go in there, right? And that's why they're not having wonderful experiences with open houses. What else? Have your phone, but don't be on your phone, right? How many times have I walked into an open house where somebody's literally on the phone? They're like, yeah, just look around, take your time, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's not how you sit an open house, guys. Make sure all the doors to the backyard and our door balconies are unlocked, right? I can't tell you how many times I've gone through an open house and had to unlock doors, unlock windows, do things, right? Where I'm like, why didn't the realtor set this up so that it was a wonderful experience for me just to walk through the property? Set up sign-in area, light candles. That's an example. I happen to believe that distinctive smells really make a difference, right? I used to burn a little bit of vanilla on some tinfoil in the oven. It created a wonderfully warm, inviting smell. And because I was not somebody who was going to bake cookies or do any of that stuff, it was an easy way for me to get a really nice smell in the property. But lit candles are inviting and enticing. And scents are definitely inviting and enticing. Open the back door to create airflow, right? Prop open the front door. You should have a door stop. Sometimes you're going to need a door stop to prop open the front door. For social media, record and post a friendly, casual video with you announcing your open house and inviting your followers to visit. You know, one thing I'll share with you guys, one of the best pieces of traction I ever got. So before I was in real estate, I used to work with Warner Brothers. And so when I got into real estate, I had an assumption that all these people from Warner Brothers were going to work with me. And they weren't, because I didn't have any experience. And now I went from working at Warner Brothers to being a realtor, right? Well, what I found was when I shared with them everything that I was doing on Facebook, right? On social, well, back then it was really just Facebook. When I was sharing with them my open houses, they thought those were my listings. So all of a sudden, after 6 months, 9 months, these people started coming to me because they're like, wow, you're doing amazing. You got all these different properties, you got all these different deals. So we really want to promote our open houses with a casual video and make sure to invite people to stop by, right? It shows that you're active and you have a lot going on in real estate during the open house. So consider yourself a host in the home, right? Like you are the homeowner, you are the host of this open house. Now, my recommendation is that you remain standing, you review standing in view of the front door so that anyone entering will see you and be welcomed inside. So I would always be there as a welcomer to invite people into the home. Maintain a professional posture at all times, right? Actively greet, walk towards them. All entering guests with a smile, a handshake, and a professional greeting. There's too many people that come into, I see this all the time, right? There's too many consumers coming into open house where they're like, not sure whether they should come in or not come in, and they're not being engaged by anybody. So they're not sure whether they should sign in or not sign in. They're like half unsure of what to do, whereas your responsibility is to be the host of this open house. So you should be engaging with people at the door, smiling at them, introducing yourself, inviting them in. This is the way you should be sitting in an open house, right? Have everyone sign in. Use a welcome sign-in sheet. So here's an example of a welcome sign-in sheet. You'll have access to this too. Now, why do we want to fill out the first line, right? And literally put notes on how you want to be communicated with. because when other people come in and they see that, they will absolutely mirror it and do the same thing, right? They will go look at the sign-in sheet. Oh, he wants him to stay in touch. Okay, great. Yeah, I'll do the same thing. It's a wonderful little tip that gets people to engage with your sign-in sheets. So just fill out the first line, or we have one that's created for you, but fill out the first line so that other people will follow the suit and do exactly the same thing. Okay, back to our open house. You'll have access to this as well. Fill in the first line. Leave a note in the comment section asking to be followed up with. No one wants to be the first on the list, but if they see someone else has signed in, they'll do the same. Now, explain to people, people get really nervous about signing in. I see a lot of times because nobody's explained to them why they need to sign in. So explain, just simply, you should be able to explain that you have a requirement to document who comes into the property. And when you explain that, nobody's going to argue with it, right? Because if you're the listing agent, right, you need to know everybody who's come through the property, because if that contract expires, then that person buys the property and you didn't register them, you're not entitled to commission. But if I have a listing and I register somebody and they buy it after the listing expires, I'm entitled to commission, right? So I have to be able to register the people that have come through the open house so I can give the list of the consumers to the seller. And when you explain it very simply to people that you just need to identify everybody who's come through the property for the seller, because that's part of the legal obligations, then they're okay with signing it. Okay, I went through it, right? If the listing expires, you need to be able to give the list of the people who went through the property during the open house. So you can hand them a flyer. You can allow them to scan a QR code for details about the home inside, or you can give them the flyer, right? They can walk around with flyers. Direct them to tour the house, point out a highlight, and ask them to connect with you when they are finished. So here's the deal. I like to do one of two things, right? One of the things that I like to do is I like to offer the potential client the opportunity. If they want to walk through the property themselves, then I'll tell them a few things that are highlighted that they should check out. And then I'll check in with them when they come back through the property, right? Or if they want, I can give them a tour of the property. So if I'm really engaged with the client, right? If they really engage with me quickly right away and they want a tour of the property, then I'm happily going to give them a tour of the property. But I'm going to give them that option, whether they want to tour it on their own or whether they want me to give them a tour of the property. So treat every visitor as if they're a prospective buyer or seller. I like to talk about mind reading, right? Mind reading is something we put certain connotations on things without knowing exactly where they are. And sometimes we see somebody who's dressed shabbily and we're like, oh, that's not a real person, right? They're not going to be somebody who's a seller or a buyer. And lo and behold, they could be the most wealthy person in Los Angeles, right? So you really have to be careful not to mind read and just treat every visitor that comes through as a prospective buyer or seller. Learn buyer preferences. So here's an open house form that we use, right? That allows the buyer to give you feedback on that particular property. It's a great way to engage with potential buyers because they like to give feedback, right? So you could literally either have this and ask them these questions while you're talking to them, or you can ask them to fill it out. But it's an opportunity to engage with them on a deeper level, to build rapport with them, right? That's the entire goal of the potential of working with a buyer from an open house. Engage in conversation, right? Simple conversation, right? There's simple scripts, simple sentences, simple questions. That's what I was looking for. Simple questions we should be able to verbalize. How long have you been looking for property, right? So pre-qualify buyers and set expectations. So one of the things I want to share with you guys is this is the thing that I see. Let me break it down for you guys. Let's say you sat an open house, and let's say on average 5 people come through an open house. It's usually somewhere between 5 and 10, right? So now let's say I sit 2 open houses every single month. So that's 10 prospective buyers that come through the open house. Now I'm sitting property every month, every year, right? Let's say I sit property for 10 months. That's 100 potential buyers that came through the open houses that I sat in that potential year. And I'm giving you 2 months off, right? Of open houses, literally 2 months off. That's 100 potential buyers. What ends up happening is, as agents, instead of being professionals, we try to work with everybody. So we're trying to work with all 100 of these people that are coming through the open house. And what I teach is we want to look for the people that are looking for professionals that want to do a buyer consultation, right? They want to sit down with us and talk about what their goals are and what their needs are so that we can guide them through the process. Are you working with an agent, right? Like that's the first question to ask. And if they tell you they're working with an agent, ask them to put their agent's name down, because that's who you're going to follow up with, right? To get some feedback about the property. Now, 9 times out of 10, they're not even going to know they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm working with an agent. And then they don't have an agent's name to put down. I can't remember what their name is. I'm going to find out very quickly. I'm going to identify whether they're a potential candidate to work with me, right? Whether they're truly working with an agent or not. I'm not going to put them on the spot and be like, hey, you just told me you're working with an agent. You don't even know their name, right? It just identifies for me that they're not working with somebody. And if they are, then I need to know who that person is, because I want to follow up and get feedback about the property. If they say yes, ask them with the agent. It's, what I like to say, it's such a small community. I probably know who they are. And, I need to get feedback about the property, right? So 9 times out of 10, they actually aren't working with somebody. So one of the things that I really want you guys to focus on is, what is the buyer's objection to working with an agent? What is usually a buyer's objection to working with an agent? Well, a lot of times they want to go directly to the listing agent because they think they might get a better deal going to the listing agent, right? I need to understand what the individual buyer's objection to working with an agent is so that I can handle that objection. If I don't know what their objection is to working with an agent, then I don't know how to handle that objection, right? So when we simply ask questions, simple questions is, hey, are you working with an agent right now? No? Okay, great, good. What's your objection to working with an agent? Like, the seller pays the commission, right? And my job is to protect you, to negotiate the best deal. So what's your objection to working with an agent? And a lot of times they'll verbalize it. Oh, we think we'll get a better deal going directly to the listing agent, which then allows you to handle that objection. And by the way, NAR has great statistics on how people don't get a better deal going directly to the listing agent. You guys should know that, right? People don't get a better deal going directly to the listing agent. They just sometimes hear that and are advised from their cousin or their friend to do that, right? And it's not the best option for them. But you don't know that unless you ask the question and learn their objection, and you don't know how to handle it unless you know the objection, right? So the objection usually is they don't see the value of working with you. So often they think they'll get a better deal going directly to the listing agent, right? And the listing agent's fiduciary responsibility is to the seller. Like, they literally can't even negotiate with the buyer on the buyer's behalf, right? So often they think they're getting a better deal going directly to the listing agent, And that's not the case. And so you're able to handle that objection by bringing it up, by understanding what it is. And then what's the thing that we want to go for, right? The thing that we all want to be doing with our buyers is a buyer consultation, where we get together with them and we ask them a list of questions. We go through what their goals are so that we can really hone in on what they're looking for and do our work, which is go out and find it for them and negotiate the best deal for them, right? So how do you do that? You do that by having a buyer consultation. I see too many buyers trying to work with agents trying to work with buyers without knowing what their motivation is, without doing a buyer consultation with them so that they really get into all of the details of the specificity of what they're looking for. And because of that, they end up working so many hours and having so few results for it. Any questions so far, by the way? I'll open it up to some questions right now if we have any. Manuel?
Yes, we had two. Give me a sec. What are your thoughts about using a digital sign-in?
Yeah, I love a digital sign-in. Absolutely. We've talked about that before, you and I, Manuel. Digital sign-in is great because you're getting everybody's information, you're capturing it. If they're writing it, they can, write illegibly. Yeah, so there's a lot of advantage. What other questions?
And then someone asked, people seem to be hesitant with handshakes these days since COVID. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great point. And like I said, there's no right or wrong in coaching. If you feel like people are uncomfortable shaking hands, you can go up and introduce yourself without shaking hands. Absolutely. Everything that we do should be gauged in the moment based on being present in the moment. Any other questions?
Yeah, then somebody said when you were mentioning door knocking and inviting people in the neighborhood to the open house, if it had to be your listing.
No. To a
Sorry,
preview?
the question, just to revise the question, it was because it was my question. It was more for the pre-open house that you suggested, like, before the time before the open house, it's like just a neighbor preview. You said if it's your listing. But what if it's not your listing? Can you still?
Yes, absolutely. You just need to get permission from the listing agent.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. Absolutely. And, for me as an agent, it's better exposure if I'm allowing you to sit in my listing. So hopefully they're okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful opportunity, and it doesn't have to be your own listing because as newer agents, we don't have a lot of listings. So we have to leverage ourselves. Absolutely. Great question. Any other questions, Manuel, before I move on?
4 just came in. Let's see. Yeah, someone's asking about recording, so that will go out after this is over, along with the slides.
You will all get the recording with all of the worksheets that we have looked at and the scripts. We're going to go over some real specific scripts right now, so you will get all of these.
Someone asked if you have a buyer consultation list. I was going to answer that that's a different training.
It is a different training. Part of our 90-day training program is 24 different classes. We do 2 different classes every single week with role play every single morning and an accountability group once a week. So that is part of the buyer consultation class that we do.
Someone said, if you have a lot of traffic, how do you engage in a buyer consultation with just one buyer?
Yeah, that's so the goal isn't, it's a great question, by the way, whoever asked it. The goal isn't to engage with the buyer consultation right then and there. It's to set one up, right? Too many people are literally like, oh, let me put you on the MLS search or this search, right? And send you properties, right? Which is what most agents I see do, right? Versus like, no, I need to do a full-on buyer consultation with you. First of all, these days, I want to make sure you're talking to a mortgage broker versus an actual bank, because you have so many different options in terms of lending. You'll have very limited options at a bank, right? So there's all different reasons why we want to do a buyer consultation, but that's where we want to go. Okay, Any other
Sorry,
questions?
and then the last question was going to be, do you recommend passing out flyers or other assets or having them at the counter for people to grab it at their leisure?
It's such a great question. I will tell you this. I don't like to give them the open house sheet when they come through the property. And I will literally verbalize that to them because they'll want it. And I'll say, I have a fear that if I give that to you, because this is what happens. They start walking through the property, looking at that sheet of paper, and they're not even looking at the property, right? So what I always suggest to them is, please look, the sheet's right here. I'm going to give it to you for sure. View the property first, because otherwise when I give you the sheet, you're just going to start looking at that. And so I want them to view the property first before I give them the sheet. So I'll try to control that, but if they want it, of course, I'm going to give it to them. I'm not going to deny them the sheet. Okay, we good, Memo?
Yeah.
Cool. After the open house, take down the signs, close the door, go back inside to clean up. That's obvious, right? Pick up your open house registry, all other items, wipe the counters, tables, doorknobs with antibacterial wipes, close the windows, blinds, and curtains. Remove all trash from the kitchen. One thing I didn't share with you is put back all the items that if you guys collected items, that were stealable, make sure to put them all back in the right place before you leave. And turn off all the lights, right? Lock all the doors and windows. Return to the key to lockbox or coordinate returning it to the office, obviously. So follow up, guys. So first things first, if you're representing a seller and you have an open house, you should be calling them right after the open house. Sellers are usually anxious. They want communication. Yeah, I mean, I could set it up with them that I'll talk to them on Monday, but they want that feedback, right? And one of the things that we make sure that we focus on is never negative feedback. So always neutral to positive feedback when you're talking to sellers. Yeah, so you want to call the seller and give them feedback. Or if I got the listing, if I got the open house from another agent, you want to call that agent right after the open house. Why? So they can call the seller, right? You want to be able to get open houses from good agents over and over and over again. One of the things we didn't talk about in this open house is how do you get open houses, right? So my suggestion is you develop relationships with listing agents. And if you follow the MLS or Caravan, you know who they are, right? Start developing those relationships and offering to sit open houses. And when you do them professionally, they'll offer you more open houses. I promise you that. So you want to give that listing agent feedback right after the open house. You also want to give them the list of people that came through because they have to register that list with the homeowner if the property expires. Otherwise, they're not, if that buyer came through your open house and you don't give them that list and then that property expires and the buyer comes back a week later and buys it, they just lost out on a commission because you didn't share the list with them. So you've got to be able to share and I'm sharing with you guys something agents probably don't verbalize to you, listing agents. You have to share that list with them so they have that list for their list of people who came to see the property. Cool. So always follow up right afterwards. That's my point. Set expectations ahead of time. One thing we teach at Real Momentum is always set expectations up front. It's a lot easier than trying to create boundaries afterwards, right? Set expectations up front. So set the expectation with the buyer. If it's somebody that wants to do a buyer consultation and I want to engage in, I'm going to try to talk to them that evening, right? Because they may have gone to 5 different open houses. They all blended together. They're a little bit of a blur and I want to set myself apart. So I'm going to follow up with them that same day. Or at the very latest, you should be following up with them the next morning, right? Monday morning. I see too many agents sit in open house and then don't follow up for 2-3 days. And that's the kiss of death. And there's psychological reasons why we do that, which we get into at Real Momentum. One of the reasons I did that as an agent was because as long as I didn't call those people, I still had potential leads, right? And I didn't want to not have any leads. So those were still leads for me as long as I didn't get rejected from them. Keep your feedback neutral to positive. We talked about that. More follow-up. So on the same day, follow up every visitor with a call or a text or a video, right? So when I say video, guys, one of the things that I think videos are going to be really powerful moving forward, you should create a video that you can send to any buyer, right? You guys should have these things as part of your repertoire, right? A video that you can send to a buyer after an open house. Oh my God, thank you for stopping by. It was so great to connect with you, blah, blah, blah. And a little bit of information, and I'll be following up with you. You're giving yourself permission to follow up, right? I'll follow up with you with a phone call. It's something that you could literally have 10 people come through an open house. All I got to do is check all 10, right? And send that video out. It's called leverage, right? As opposed to individually writing each one an individual thing, I can send a group video which looks personable, like it's specifically directed to them. Add open house contacts to your CRM. So to me, you know, as far as adding buyers into your CRM, you know, I don't want to add all the buyers into my CRM. I only want to add the buyers that want to have a consultation with me, right? I see so many realtors just add everybody into their database, and then they have a database of 50,000 people and no communication with it. Right? The more we really clean up our database and communicate it with it effectively, the more we're going to see a lot of results in real estate. And so you only want to add people that are interested in building a relationship with you or working with you as an agent, right? Those are the people you want to add into your CRM. Tag the ones who scheduled the buyer consultation with you so you can follow up with them regularly. Now, the reason I say tag the ones is because, like I said, there's no right or wrong in coaching. If you want to add them all, great, add them all. But tag the ones that schedule the buyer consult with you, because those are the ones you want to really focus on. See, one of the things that we keep talking about here at Real Momentum is focusing on the motivated, right? The more we focus on motivated people, the less we work and the more money we end up making. So you're only interested in the buyers who will do a buyer consultation with you. And actually, you know, one of the things we teach in the buyer consultation is getting them to sign a buyer broker agreement. You know, most of us here are from California, so I will share with you, the buyer broker agreement in California is cancelable with 48 hours notice at any time. So you should always be able to get somebody to sign that with you, right? Because if they're not, that means they're just looking at properties from 20 different realtors, and whoever shows them a property, they're going to work with. And that shows me two things. One is they're not your client. And two is they don't know the value of a realtor because you haven't shown them the value of a good realtor. Just because somebody showed you a property, does that mean they're going to negotiate the best deal for you? Does that mean they know how to handle the inspections? Does that mean they're going to make sure you're with the right mortgage broker? Does that, right? You should be able to know all of those things, which is what you bring to the table as an amazing buyer agent, right? All right, so 11:50, wow. Manuel, before we open it up to questions, can you share with people the social media stuff?
Sure, I'll do that right now.
And can you tell them what to do?
Yeah, so I was just going to say that every month, at the end of the month, we give away a free membership to the next course training. All you have to do is just follow us on our social media profiles and like and comment on our posts. And then we'll just pick somebody at the end of the month who's done that. Yeah, and we'll just give it away.
So we're giving away 3 this month, right?
This month, 3, yeah. So
Yeah.
just follow us and like and comment on our post.
So guys, the next cohort, the next training doesn't start till August 21st. So just so you know, I'll be doing another free training in July. I love doing trainings. We'll do another free training. You'll all be invited to it. And, you know, the goal really will be to build out this cohort, which is going to start August 21st. And so if you go to realmomentum.com, you can find out about all the classes that we do, all the information that's going to be part of the training. And yep, that's pretty much it. You know, one thing that I want to mention to you guys is we're just finishing the first cohort right now. And I'm seeing in 90 days, I've seen a shift in the way these agents do business. You know, I think that a lot of agents are taught how to be reactive as agents and how to focus on trying to get clients to reach out to them, right? And the reality is when you're focused on building your business and your responsibility is reaching out to clients and building your database and your book of business with potential buyers and sellers, then you're in control of your business. And when you focus on trying to get people to reach out to you, you have zero control of your business and you're at the mercy of whether somebody's going to reach out to you or not. And that's not the way I want people to build a business. I want them to be proactive, to be adding people into their database on a regular basis, to be talking to people and to be building a business that way. Actions for opportunity. So this is usually for, just so you guys see, this is what we do at the end of our training for our agents. So utilize the supply checklist, add 2 people a week into your database. So we add 5 people a week in the 3rd month. So the first 2 months, we add 2 people a week into our database. And the 3rd month, we add 5 people a week into our database. Imagine if you added 5 people a week into your database. That would be 20 people a month. That would be 200 people a year. Once again, I'll give you 2 months off, 200 people a year. When you add 200 people a year into your database, even if you add 100 people a year into your database and you start communicating with them effectively, then you start to see consistent business coming from your database. We track everything we do on accountability. I want everybody to get into the habit of tracking their numbers. If I know that if I talk to 25 sellers a week, I get 1 listing every month, then now I know exactly how to build my business, how to leverage it, how to expand it, just simply by knowing my numbers, right? So the more you understand your numbers, the more you're in control as an entrepreneur of your business. You know, we do daily affirmations as part of Real Momentum. I find that the number one thing holding realtors back in real estate is themselves. We have too many self-imposed obstacles and limiting beliefs that we infuse into our business, and that's what ends up holding us back. And we don't even know we're doing it a lot of times. It's unconscious. So we really do start to work on how we address the unconscious mind, how we can utilize the unconscious mind, and how we can build rapport with people quickly and easily and start to build out our business. And that's it. And then role play, as we talked about, you guys are going to get the open house scripts from the scripts collection. So you will have access to all of those scripts as well. So thank you guys all for being here. I always love to finish in a timely manner, on time. I appreciate you guys taking time to be here this morning. I know you could be anywhere else, and I hope you took something new of value from this. And I look forward to seeing you guys all in, Manuel.
Just a couple questions.
Yeah, sure.
What are some cues to hook potential buyers? They usually show interest during the open house, but don't respond to follow-ups.
Yes, exactly. That's why I set the expectations up front always. That's why I don't want to chase after those buyers afterwards. And especially if I have to chase after 10 different people that came through the open house, I'm looking for the one that I build rapport with that wants to work with me. And then I'm scheduling the buyer consultation with them at the open house for another day, but I'm scheduling it when they're there at the open house. And one thing I invite you to do, guys, it's really important, is before you leave any appointment or before you leave a conversation, always set up the next call, because that's how you control when you can reach them. Otherwise, you're busy chasing after people all day, every day, and it ends up being very frustrating. So yeah, we want to set those expectations up front and set that appointment up front, but for later on in the week. What else, Manuel?
That was the last one, unless people have any other questions.
Any other questions? Fantastic, guys. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Have an amazing week, everybody. Take care.